Hello, everyone. We are back again with another weekly episode of our podcast. We are the Football Tailgaters, and we go over hot topics in the NFL. As always, we have here Yams, who's a Jets fan, Andy, who's an unbiased fan, and I'm Aaron, the Cowboys fan in this group. So we got Week 8 in the books, completely done for, and we're going to go over some quick topics here. We got 3 topics. Obviously, we're going to always start with our weekly biggest disappointment and surprise, and we got lots to talk about regarding Kirk Cousins, the 49ers with Brock Purdy, and Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns. Let's start with our weekly biggest disappointment for Week 8.
My biggest disappointment is Thursday night game when that Hail Mary went straight to Chris Godwin and he didn't care to look up to the sky and say the ball was coming right to him to deliver a tied game for the Buffalo Bills.
My biggest disappointment is the 49ers having 3 straight losses after that beatdown they gave to the Dallas Cowboys. It's not going to be the 49ers having this trouble throughout the whole season, but it's just concerning at this point.
I agree with mainly the 49ers one because it's been 3 straight games that they've been struggling. And yes, you can fault that, or you can maybe excuse the injuries in regards to that, some little hiccups that they've been dealing with. And this kind of just shows right now in the whole league that there's no super team right now. Even with all the weapons that you can have on each side of the ball, right? It still doesn't matter, right? There's still problems all across these teams. And it's just what happens in the NFL, and it's not really a surprise to me. It's really rare when a super team can come through and really look unstoppable. What about the weekly biggest surprise for you guys?
You know, for me, it's the Wilsons. And when I say the Wilsons, I mean Zach Wilson and Russell Wilson. Outplayed Mahomes. And it was about time the Chiefs lost. The Chiefs had been playing sloppy. And because the refs saved them their butts so many times, it was about time they lost. And yeah, deserved.
Yeah, biggest surprise was the Denver Broncos beating the Kansas City Chiefs. I was looking at some stats earlier this morning. Russell Wilson has 16 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and Patrick Mahomes has 15 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. 101.7 passer rating for Russell Wilson and 95.8 passer rating for Mahomes. Crazy stats.
I would specifically say the Broncos, mainly because, yeah, you're dealing with a playoff competitor here in the Chiefs. And it's also a divisional game. It's a divisional game, so it's very competitive. And it's to no surprise that the games are usually going to be competitive. But 24-9 and the way the game kind of seemed to play out for Mahomes, it wasn't really favoring them at all. And the Broncos, credit to them, right? They were able to turn things around here. There was a pretty solid game on the defense, especially to keep Mahomes to only 9 points. They didn't score a single touchdown. That's crazy. So, yeah, you could say that maybe the weapons, whatever it is, they still have Kelsey, right? And the wide receivers aren't the worst thing in the world. They still have their running backs, right? Pacheco and all that.
Are they not the worst thing in the world? I mean, you have Kadarius Toney, very inconsistent. You have Sky
Moore. No, because they're 6-2.
Wouldn't that be more on the defense and having the best quarterback in the league and having the best tight end in the league?
Yeah, there you go. So you don't, I mean, could you argue that who has the worst one between like the Chiefs and the Giants? I think the Chiefs personally have a better wide receiver core than the Giants.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
So, okay, let's just put it like this. All right, they're not like the complete bottom of the barrel, but they're definitely on the second half regarding on like how good their wide receiver core. Like, they're not completely garbage, but they're also not the worst. But it's good enough for Mahomes to do things,
I would
special
say they're
things
getting
on the
close
field.
to like being like the worst like wide receiver group, like top 5 worst wide receiver group. I mean, taking away the tight ends, just
yeah, no, for sure. And the running backs are pretty good for them. Regarding even though they weren't really that good this past game, but they're like Pacheco's still solid, right? I think if they really want to make a strong run, they need to trade for a wide receiver. Who? I don't know. I have no clue because that's a lot to think about, right? But they're still 6-2, right? There's no panic button here yet. Don't press it. It's fine.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I think it's more so like you got to give credit to what the Broncos did because the Chiefs are still not a bad team. And right, you got to give credit to the offense of the Broncos because like you just said, the Chiefs defense, they do a lot of the work too. So credit to them.
Perhaps just the fact that Taylor Swift was a no-show, the Chiefs were also a no-show.
I'm not gonna
That could
comment
very
on
much
that.
be it.
I'm not gonna comment on that.
Let's jump over to our main topics and go over the big news that just broke out. I guess not really just, right, but this past Sunday with Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins, he injured his Achilles. He ruptured it. He's out for the rest of the season. This is a ginormous blow for the Vikings, who are sitting 4-4, did win the game 24-10 against the Packers. What should the Vikings do with Kirk Cousins?
Well, for the current situation, I think Nick Mullins sucks. I think he should not start. They should give a shot for the rookie quarterback, Jaren Hall. Now, it depends on how the rookie does and whichever quarterback they do and how they land or where they land in the draft. But I like Kirko. I think they should sign him for at least 3 more years. He's a Viking. He earns the right to have that shot there. He never quits, and he was bringing the team back from a 1-4 start.
I like the coach O'Connell, and this is one of the biggest decisions that they have to do during this week. Either they have to quote unquote tank the season to get one of the biggest quarterbacks out there in college for next year's draft and just trade Kirk Cousins, or stick with Kirk Cousins. He has been reliable. He has his ups and downs, but I do like him as well. If it was up to me, I would stick with Kirk Cousins and just figure out that defense and make a more explosive defense for them.
The Vikings sit at number 2 regarding yards per game in the passing game. So they're one of the best passing offenses out there. And, well, why is that? Really? It's because you have a competent quarterback that can make these throws in Kirk Cousins, right? Yeah, he disappears in prime time sometimes, but that's okay. He can still come through most of the time with Jordan Addison, with Justin Jefferson, and I guess Osborne sitting at the 3rd, right? It's a really good offense that they have. The running game, they kind of need to work out their kinks, right? But you just focus full on the passing game and you're solid, right? The defense is what really is super mediocre. They kind of sit in the middle of the pack in a lot of things regarding the defense. So there's stuff you can work on there. And yeah, that should be one of the focuses. You should stick with Kirk Cousins because he's good enough to get you through a lot of big games if you just fix the defense. Because whenever Kirk Cousins disappears, the defense is there to save him. And that's how you fix that problem. Now, they can't really afford to tank, right? Because they're sitting at 4-4, and you got worse teams out there. And it's going to be hard to, I guess, catch up in the losing category to try and get a top-tier quarterback. You would have to trade up for that pick. So that's kind of where I stand on that. I don't think it's the end of the world. It is awful. It is awful. It really is awful that he's done for the rest of the season. And it's going to be real tough on this Minnesota Vikings. And Justin Jefferson, I'm kind of curious to see what he's thinking about his situation right now. Because he's had plenty of struggles. We had the same situation with Stephon Diggs when he sat there in the Vikings when he was with the Vikings, right? And they had their struggles, and he got out of there because he was sick of it. Is it gonna be deja vu here? Is Justin Jefferson eventually gonna leave? Is he gonna stick there?
It is unfortunate.
It'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, because it's sort of like the Devontae Adams situation that you have a big-time talent. Also, the Vikings, I believe the Jefferson, he's on his rookie deal still. So they're going to have to pay him. It's a big decision for the Vikings, like I said.
All right, so I want to move over to the next topic now with the 49ers. We just talked about them earlier, right? And the 49ers, here's something interesting, right? They sit at 5-3. 5-3, second in the NFC West. Guess who's up top? The Seattle Seahawks. Crazy. Regarding when you compare those two teams, it's just insane to think about. But that's the NFL for you. After the Cowboys game with the 49ers, right? The 49ers dismantled the Cowboys, and ever since then, the 49ers have lost all their games. 3 straight, and something to point out, really interesting to me, kind of crazy. All of their last 3 games that they've lost, they've scored only 17 points. In all the games, they've scored 17 points. That's kind of crazy. So, I want to ask you guys the question, has Brock Purdy been exposed?
Many people have been saying that Brock Purdy has been exposed. I'm not one of them. The 49ers are having a slump right now of 3 straight losses. But if you look at the game, he's still playing pretty well. The receivers, including the tight end Kittle, are dropping passes. He's still moving around in the pocket and finding people. It's just it's one of those situations where teams, the really good teams, have in the middle of the season like kind of a little bit of a downfall. They figure it out, they fix it, and then in December they just get hot again. And that's what I believe the 49ers are.
It's Darnold time, baby. I just don't know if it's like he's good, then he's not good. So far he's showing us that he's basically inconsistent, right? He had 2 interceptions, I believe, and a fumble in the game.
Mm-hmm.
That's not good. You know, what is it that Aaron Rodgers says? Ball security is job security. If he continues this way, he's not going to have a job for a very long time.
I think you got to cut the 23-year-old some breaks, right? You got to cut him a break because it's only his second year. I don't think any other quarterback I think so. To put it this way, because of the situation that Brock Purdy was put in, his standards are higher than they should be. And why? Because he's surrounded with immense talent. And that's okay. But I think you should be more patient with him. Mainly because this is probably one of the best quarterbacks you've had recently, right? You've had struggles with Jimmy Garoppolo, obviously. And you have that curse in general where your quarterbacks get injured. You have that problem with Trey Lance. And there was plenty of talk. We've talked about this a lot, about what they should do with Trey Lance. Now he's gone. Now you bring in Sam Darnold, right? Which, should stay there on the bench. He should stay there on the bench and stick with Brock Purdy because this guy is great when he works in his rhythm. When he gets in his rhythm, he's great, right? He's not an awful quarterback, I think. I think people need to relax and stop jumping the gun on this because it's barely his second year. He was the final pick in his draft year, 2022, right? And there weren't much expectations until he took over, and he was able to take them far into the playoffs until he got that elbow injury. Cut this guy some slack. They'll be fine. He's not perfect, right? There's gonna be some games, some struggles, and this sometimes it's like a sequence. It's like multiple games where there's struggles, right? And he's dealt with injuries, not just him, right? But around him. He had to deal with the McCaffrey injury. He had to deal with the Deebo Samuel injury. He's still dealing with that. Yeah,
he's not just the only problem. There's several problems in the 49ers system, but this system with Kyle Shanahan, it's basically built for a quarterback, right? The system quarterback is only good for the system. But what happens when the system doesn't work for him and they need him to be a quarterback?
The defense needs to step up, and that's what didn't happen that last game. You're seeing it
right now. He's throwing interceptions. He's fumbling. You're going to see when the system does not work for him, the Kyle Shanahan system, where any quarterback should thrive in, right? And he got rid of Jimmy Garoppolo, which, in my opinion, Jimmy Garoppolo has shown to be a much better quarterback than Brock so far.
Well, it's too early to tell. Okay, so Brock Purdy is no Patrick Mahomes. Let's get that out of the way. He's no Patrick Mahomes. He seems like a very systemic quarterback, which is not bad. And whenever you're very systemic, you have to, it's a system. It's a system. So if one part of the system fails, you got to make up for that. And that's the defense. And that's what the defense is not doing. How do you have a top defense? Again, and this is comparable to any other teams. We've seen this with the Cowboys, right? We've seen this, I don't know. What's another team that's a top defense that, I don't know. Like, it's hard to really put the Jets there because, like, it's kind of, they're dealing with a different situation. But, like, Cowboys, let's just put the Cowboys, right? When Dak Prescott doesn't he doesn't do his job, right? That defense needs to step up. And this is a similar situation, right? But this is more systemic than I would say than the Cowboys, comparably. And they need to step up. The defense needs to step up when Purdy is not playing his great game, when the system on the offense isn't working. And it's not completely fair to just say, oh, it's the defense fault because they couldn't, pick up his miscues, his bad game that he was having, right? It's kind of hard to fully do that, but you put yourself in that position to where I think the coaching staff needs to really figure this out and be ready for when Brock Purdy doesn't come through.
I guess
I don't think it's going to be it's not going to be super common. Brock Purdy is going to come through. This is just something new we're seeing. This is his second year. Again, cut him some slack.
We'll agree to disagree.
We'll see, because they're not out of the playoffs. just because Brock Purdy's under center. I think they have a better chance with Brock Purdy than they ever did with Jimmy Garoppolo, in my opinion. So I want to move on to the last one, Deshaun Watson. He's been dealing with his rotator cuff, if I'm not mistaken, right? And the last game, not week 8, week 7, it seemed like they were wanting to go take him out there and start him, right? And he was doing some throws, and then he got injured again, right? So he re-aggravated the injury, and it's kind of like a weird situation what they're handling here. But like, I'm just gonna ask this question with the Cleveland Browns. So is Deshaun Watson not playing on purpose?
I try to give the benefit of the doubt to NFL players, but in this case, it's very, very fishy. When he was with the Houston Texans, he signed a deal, like a big-time deal with them. And then 3 months later, he said, I want out. And in this situation, so with that situation that happened with Houston Texans, if you go and put it in the Cleveland Browns, they are also struggling just like the Houston Texans were. So it seems like it can be a player that's like, I just don't want to put myself in that position. I already collected my money, and I don't want to play. I don't want to put myself in an injury and with a team that's not going to go anywhere. Even though, in my opinion, the Cleveland Browns have an elite defense, and they are able to get somewhere. They're doing it with PJ Walker.
Does he have control if he can play or doesn't play? Does he say, oh, you know what, this is really like nagging me, I can't play?
Yeah,
or is it not something the doctor can
This
be
happened
like,
before.
Yeah, but do you really? It's kind of like an employee type of with a corporation type of situation that.
do you have days to call in sick? Not necessarily.
No,
not in the NFL.
not that. It's just that you don't put the effort in there, and you're just doing the lack of work, and either can you believe the employee or not? You know what I mean? So that's what the Cleveland Browns are in that situation. Like, do you believe him, or do you say, hey, you're lying and you can play? Like, do you really want to have that sort of relationship with your star quarterback?
You know, I just don't know if that's the case. I think he's just injured and he doesn't, I'm sure he doesn't want to play. He doesn't want to get injured more than he already is. But you know what I feel about Deshaun Watson? Excuse me. Is that he came in to play with the Cleveland Browns unmotivated, and he's played sloppy. And, you know, when he went out with that shoulder injury, he threw an interception in making. So I just don't think that he's unmotivated, basically.
It's really an interesting situation because obviously this guy has been in the headlines for a lot of different things. And even before those headlines started, right, he was considered like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL when he was in Houston. And they were really putting him up there. And then, you know, right, that whole drama happened. And it took so much time that I think, I don't know what got into him. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, the whole, because you mentioned, Andy, right? He got his bag, and then like 3 months later, he's like, I want out, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it might be getting close to the same type of situation. He got his bag in Cleveland. I'm not saying that's just because it's kind of like prove me guilty, and I mean, I can't really see what's going on. All I'm saying, it's really, really fishy that it's kind of happening again.
It is. It seems like it's happening again, and you reap what you sow. This is the Browns' fault again. Browns doing Browns things. It's amazing. So 3 days ago, says here on ESPN, Browns Watson unsure how long injury will linger. He's considered week to week, and they're trying to avoid the IR. So something to kind of watch here. But it's really upsetting, and I just don't see anything great happening with the Browns and the Watson situation. He might be doing it on purpose. I think he's just playing it safe, right? Because he just got his bag, and he's just being safe, and he doesn't want to. But I think it's more for himself rather than for the team. I don't see him really being a team player right now. This guy's so weird. What I've seen from him, I can't really put my finger on it. What's going on, right? It's really interesting, though. It's something to watch on. So it seems like we might have time. Do we have time for fantasy updates?
Really quickly.
Or no?
Really quickly.
Oh, we can do week 4 picks if you want to do that.
Okay, let's do week 9 picks. Okay. Let's start with Thursday Night Football, the Tennessee Titans against the Steelers. Now we have a new quarterback with the Titans, Will Levis, and that's where I'm picking. He had a monster game this last Sunday, and I think he can continue doing it to the Pittsburgh Steelers, even though I do believe the Pittsburgh Steelers have a good defense, but I think that the Titans with Hopkins and the running back Henry, I don't think he's going to get traded. It doesn't seem like. I mean, who knows? We'll see. If not, they have Tajay Spears. They'll be able to pull off the win. Then we have the Germany game, the Kansas City Chiefs against the Dolphins. I believe that the Dolphins are going to be able to pull this one off. I believe the Chiefs, a lack of weaponry in the offense is having their struggles. I saw Patrick Mahomes being really frustrated, and the Dolphins are just kicking butt, honestly. So the Dolphins with Mike McDaniels, they're going to figure it out in Germany. The Ravens against the Seahawks. Now, this can be a really, really good game. It seems like the Seahawks are putting a little bit more depth on their defense. They just traded for Leonard from the Giants. And I do believe the Ravens, the offense is just clicking here. And I believe Lamar Jackson, he is actually getting a better and better every week. So I'm going to be taking the Ravens. The Dallas Cowboys against the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm sorry, Cowboy fans. I'm thinking the Eagles are going to be taking this one. It might be a shootout. It might not be, but I'm going to be thinking that it is a shootout. I know that Hurts is injured with a knee injury, but they're going to be able to figure it out with that running game and just quick passes. And they have a monster wide receiver with A.J. Brown. So I'm going to be taking the Eagles. Sunday Night Football, we have the Buffalo Bills against the Bengals. I am going to be taking the Bengals at this point. I know Buffalo has had his struggles. We've seen them. They're going up and down. I don't know what's going on with them. One week is they're good and one week they're bad. And it looks like the Bengals are actually rolling into the positive direction. They just beat the San Francisco 49ers, and it looks like Macaulay Culkin is back. He's not home alone anymore. He'll be able to win that Sunday Night Football game. Monday Night Football, the New York Jets against the Los Angeles Chargers. Man, that was a horrible game that I was watching, the Giants against the Jets. It was pretty bad on both sides. I think the New York Jets got really lucky with the Giants just fumbling the game on themselves. So I'm going to take the Chargers. I know they just beat the Bears. They have just better weaponry, and I believe the Jets defense is going to get exhausted. So I'm going to take the Chargers.
Oh.
That's it.
That was the last one?
Yep.
That was Monday.
That is Monday Night Football.
Oh, man. Well, too bad you can't really have any input, Yams, because we're out of time. That's unfortunate. Maybe you can tell them right after this. All right. Thank you guys for listening to the very end, and we'd love to see you guys giving your opinion with us on our social media, which is football_tailgaters on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Thank you guys again for listening. We'll see you guys in the next episode.